What's going on, gamers? So this is a really good one to react to right here. We got some more takes on things. Shuhei Yoshida spills a lot of beans here. This isn't just about what PlayStation actually thinks about Nintendo, but it's also about how when he's working for Sony, you can't really say anything about how you think or feel about Nintendo. And if he wanted to do any interviews, he has to go to the PR first. That's how it works in the industry. Some interesting stuff is shared here and how he can just be more open now since he's not working for Sony. It's like that, of course, probably in Nintendo's company as well too. How things work in Japan and overseas, who developed what and who's following who. There's just a lot that's in this video that's pretty interesting. So we're gonna get into this. Like, comment, subscribe, let me know what y'all think. Are we ready? Let's go. All right.
Our chance.
Maybe we missed our chance, or maybe now is the chance. So we're just so happy we could make it happen.
Yeah.
Well, you may know that I've been lifelong Nintendo games fan, right? But because I work for Sony, I had to restrain myself of
Yes.
expressing my love for
Yes.
games.
We honestly
That's pretty funny. He's cool. I've always liked this guy. Shuhei's a cool dude.
understand that well, but from the other side, we were so associated with Nintendo when we worked at the company. We loved so many PlayStation games that we couldn't tell anybody about. So I would keep it to myself.
Yeah, I remember that. If y'all don't remember them, they've been with Nintendo for a while. These two were always together. It's cool seeing they're still doing that. They've been doing it for quite some time, pretty long time.
As I played all of the God of War games, and gosh, so it was like the experience from the other side. That's so interesting that you that you had the same experience that we did.
So you've been away from Sony for a little while now, but you've been out there. You've been appearing on podcasts. You've been sharing actively on social media. And it's so interesting because sometimes a lot of these gaming executives step away and they just vanish. You never hear from them again. So
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
it's wonderful that you're still out there.
He laughs. He's like, yeah, okay, yeah, I ain't those guys, those little suit guys that just show up. He actually cares. That's one thing I like about Shuhei. He's awesome. He comes and talks with people. Cool dude. You know what I mean? Courageous. Speaks good English. He's awesome. Like, he's one of my favorite people in the industry. Though I have my, issues with Sony, but he's cool. I like him.
But is there any do you have any goal of I want to share my stories, or
So
I want
Sonny.
to share my wisdom that's causing you to stay out there and to share all this great knowledge that you have?
Not much like that, but I used to do lots of media interviews when I was running the first party many years ago. But somehow the PlayStation's PR strategy or approach changed, that they kind of stopped, putting these, game developer or game production people on media. So I was doing the indie.
Did you hear what he just said? It used to be more about developers, then something happened. Oh, we know what happened with the takeovers. Then it's just not about developers anymore. What does that mean? PR, stock, business, money. How you start to kind of see that people felt the change. He pretty much just made it clear, talking about PR.
Support role for the last 5 years at PlayStation. So I was able to take interviews or talk to, media or, industry events about the PlayStation support and love of indie games. But, of course, I was not allowed to talk any other subject. And because
So he was only allowed to talk about indie. Not only did he get the ultimatum from Jen Ryan, but he got placed in a position and restricted by the PR to only talk about that. And remember, game development is not as important. They move them in the back.
I have had so many friends in the media, and many of them become left media and become the influencer. They started this, really nice, podcast or YouTube group. I wanted to go back to them and have a chat about any topics. Now that I don't have to ask for approval for the PR department to show up in podcast, influencer group.
Right there, that's kind of like some MK stuff, but he's smart enough and strong enough to be fine, if you get what I mean. But he literally just told you that's how it works in that department. So not only was he removed from first party development, not only was first party development moved back, but he was restricted in his indie role. Communication was broken up from Japan. I'm capturing all this for y'all. And yeah, that's not good. This is all making sense now. Like this change that we see going on, and he's just letting you know. You see what he said.
So I'm like, yeah, I love doing this. And I strategically booked, because many of us came to me, right after the announcement was made, but I was leaving PlayStation, but I booked the interviews, with intervals, because I didn't want to take interviews at the same time, because I would have to say the same thing again, right? And it's not fun. And when I
Yeah, that's not fun having to repeat and be asked the same questions over and over again. I understand how he feels about that, but yeah, the approval to do an interview, you guys see it. You have to ask if you want to do something, and they tell you what you need to say. You have to make sure you're representing the PR first. This tells you a lot about the industry. Like I've been trying to tell people, the hijacking, it's not what you think. Your misdirected delusion is not helping. It's not going to change anything, because if you know who you're dealing with behind the scenes, then yeah, what are you doing? Yeah, it's pretty obvious. Certain people just want to make money. But there's a lot answered right here. And then we're going to get to some things about Xbox. We're going to get to some things about Nintendo as well. This is a really beefy one. Obviously, this has to be broken up, but we're going to get a lot in as much as we can. So let's go.
do that way, the second person interviewer watch the first interview and come up with different questions to ask, so that I won't get bored answering the same questions, or I'll talk about something new that may become some headline or some buzz for the show. So that continued for the last 3 or 4 months. So I'm kind of, winding down that kind of, going through all my friends, even including, I don't know, about Dave Jaffe. Dave Jaffe is just such a creative guy, who created Twisted Metal and God of War.
Oh, God.
One of my longtime friends and collaborator. So I wanted to do something for his show, but you may know that his show is really dangerous to show. Because he asks such spicy questions. So, I wasn't able to do so until a week ago, I think. A couple of months ago, I came.
But you see what he's saying? I'm restricted, and he's asking these questions, and it's a spicy question. And I think he wants to answer, but he's letting you know I can't do that. You know what I mean? So this gives you the idea about the control in the industry as well.
Came up with this idea that because he has such a celebrated and colorful career, instead of letting him ask me lots of difficult questions, how about I interview him and he talks about, his long time career, how he came up with the idea of making Twisted Metal or, God of War, and how he decided to leave the game development and had become a YouTuber. So it went well. So after I met with all my friends, and now I can meet new friends like yourself.
So, that's awesome. What a great strategy to, be able to share so many different perspectives and aspects of your career.
Yeah.
And
I'm very much looking forward to this one, because you have a very, interesting background, and between you and I could exchange some interesting stories.
Yeah.
So we promise not to ask you like super spicy questions, but we have some spicy ones too.
We know how it goes.
Okay.
Are you ever surprised at how things that you say in these interviews gets picked up in the media or picked up by fans? Because that's frankly something that happens to us as well. Is we're always talking about things that we think are interesting, but it's always sometimes unusual to be like, oh, that's the thing that gets a headline. The former Nintendo employees, the former PlayStation executive.
Yeah, that's always the case. Believe me, I took so many media training back in the days, and one small thing I mentioned might become the headline, and all the other good stuff I said might not be covered at all. So I've been seeing that. Something like when I said the other reaction to the announcement of Switch 2. I think I said a lot of good things about Switch 2, but the only thing I picked up was, Nintendo maybe losing their identity or something.
He was a little bit worried about that, but things are fine now as he sees. But he's just saying that when it comes to things, this is going to get interesting because he's going to say this. Remember what he said about Game Pass? Watch this, because this gets interesting, because the same thing is kind of like that. It's the way that the media, he's saying, is doing that and making him look like a bad guy, but that's not, the way that it is. And it is like that. And they were talking about, what to say and what not to say, too, because they used to work for Nintendo, so they know.
That I said.
Yeah, we saw those headlines.
So a lot of the times,
I got a lot of hate message from Nintendo, globally. But
fanboys.
Okay.
That's how it goes. But a lot of times, they pull out the most clickbait headline, and that you kind of miss the context around all the things that you were talking about. So we've had it happen to us too.
I was in Brazil for Gamescom Latam, and I took 10 or 11 interviews, and the things I said about Game Pass, was picked up as Shuhei Yoshida, EX Sony executive, criticizing Game Pass as being dangerous for the industry or something that. I got lots of hate message from.
No, but see what he just did, because that's what they did. They didn't listen to what he was saying. Like, if you go read what he's saying, he's not saying it like that. He's explaining things in a professional manner, but they took that and, like I said, like in a Western sense. He said the Game Passes, this and that, and then oh yeah, you know what I mean? And here they come, and then it comes to fanboy stuff, and like I said, it's the same thing. Then take the Nintendo headline, but they know what they're doing. It spices things up, gets more headline. You guys know how it works. You know what I mean? This happens on YouTube every single day. So, that's just how it works.
Xbox fans.
Look out. Yeah.
But
we want to we want to talk to you about kind of the relationship between Nintendo and Sony. And it's something that we've shared a bit on our podcast, kind of our perspective from the Nintendo side, where there was always, it was very clear, a deep respect of what Sony has done over the years, and an understanding that there were times where Sony was clearly outperforming Nintendo. So I think there was this recognition of, we're now going down some fairly different paths, where Sony has its lane that it's going down, Nintendo has its lane going down, but there was always we understand that at any moment, they could really be the top dog or upend everything that we're doing. And I'm so curious, what was the feeling about Nintendo inside Sony?
Oh yeah. So, aside from, my personal feeling, I always admired, Nintendo games. And because I was on the development side, I got so many inspirations and learnings from the games that they released. But other than myself, the overall very interesting, working for PlayStation, their perception of their competition is always Xbox. They see, Microsoft being a competition, and because Xbox is very similar, performance hardware, right? Like a high-end, console, and, matured games. And Nintendo is very, very different, right? Nintendo is family friendly, games for everyone, and, not about technology. It's more about, having fun with friends and families, and always have, multiple controllers, bundled with the hardware. So inside Sony, even when they do a business analysis, Nintendo doesn't show up even. So there's a competition market share between PlayStation and Xbox, and somehow they don't include Nintendo. Not that they're ignoring Nintendo, but that they do not necessarily feel Nintendo is competition, because Nintendo is covering a different audience, and in a bigger scale, Nintendo is bringing young audience into the gaming, and some of them, when they grow up, might graduate into more matured systems like PlayStation.
You know what's so funny about this is their inability to realize that they got beat multiple times and that they're losing and that Nintendo's better than them. So they come up with these ego dot systems to say that, to make it seem like it's not competition, but everybody knows stats are stats, bro. You lost. Nintendo's number one, you're number two, and Xbox is number three. It's okay, man. You went in the handheld industry and tried, you lost every single time. Either people like a good video game or not all this kiddie stuff. Like, you know what I mean? This is just like little subconscious low blows to me, because it's the inability to say you got outshined, outdeveloped, outsold. They never laid off. They didn't cancel anything. No. Your console is immature. You know what I mean? Your generation is immature. You people are acting like children. They don't do any layoffs. You know what I mean? The Nintendo demographic, actually adult demographic, is just as high as same as PlayStation. Go look it up. Kids today are playing Roblox, Fortnite, you know what I mean? Minecraft, you know what I mean, on PlayStation and getting on PC. That mindset to me is outdated now. It doesn't work anymore. The demographics have totally changed, like big time. And you think 153 million consoles sold, those are kids? No, these are people that grew up on that. They have the biggest audience in the world because they do capture everybody. That means that you're more talented because you can get more people, not just a skewed demographic of first party that's very niche, and then 95% of your success is other people's success. You ain't on their level, and you know it. They've been creating their whole way this whole time. You guys just followed them. You see what I'm saying? And you moved hardware. And you do have good first party now, but it took you forever to get there. But 97% of their success is other people's games. Same thing for Xbox, except at one point there was Halo that moved people to Xbox and Gears, you know what I mean, at one point. That's why I'll give them credit for that. But my thing with that is that I understand what he's saying, but I mean, it's like nobody really thinks like that anymore. I kind of feel like that's an outdated 90s mindset. And even then, everybody was on them at first with Sega Genesis. So, no.
PlayStation or Xbox. So, I think, of course, there's a huge respect for what Nintendo does, and in terms of how Nintendo should be doing in the industry, we all felt that it's great to have Nintendo continue to be successful, so that we can grow the industry, continue to grow the industry together, kind of feeling, I think. Well, but except for one market. It's Japan. Nintendo is hugely strong, and Xbox almost doesn't exist. I should be careful. I may get hate message.
No, but he's right though. That could be a headline, but you see what I mean? But he's just being honest. It doesn't. Like, why would it grow there? You know what I mean? That's not going to happen. They'd be better off trying to do Game Pass on PC in Asian markets. And that's exactly what they're doing. You see what I mean? This is being intelligent. If anybody's offended, then they just have a glass mindset. They're weak-minded. They just can't handle a simple, obvious reality. Go look at the sales and, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, why does Nintendo have 90-something% of Japan? Their demographics are a lot of adults. You see what I mean? And they have the highest IQ by race on the planet. So the smartest race is supporting Nintendo. I'm just saying, dude, we're speaking by stats here. You can't use that excuse when you're just even looking at the Japanese culture, and most of gaming was successful because of the Japanese culture. I mean, that's where Nintendo comes from. The biggest market in America, you look at a demographic, Sony's not bigger than Nintendo in America. You see what I mean? So actually worldwide, they have perfect equilibrium because they have really good balance in Japan and really good balance in Europe and really good balance in America. So if the whole world is saying that, then they have perfect equilibrium. Then that's just saying something. Definitely when it's them that's creating their own game. See, it's them doing that, publishing and development. So it's like if you look at publishing Sony and development by Sony, you realize it's a landslide. It's not even close. So their success is shallow compared to Nintendo's to me. I would rather have Nintendo and get rid of Sony because I have PC. I just say everything's on PC. Because I would not want to get rid of the Nintendo development. You know what I mean? Everybody would tell you in the world, oh, I would never drop Nintendo development for Sony development. I'd rather get rid of Sony. Because as more time goes on, all that third-party stuff is right here on PC on max settings. And then it comes down to how good is your first-party development. You see what I'm saying, y'all? Because that's what it comes down to. Hardware is not here forever. It's about development. And let's just be real. Nintendo are the best developers by a mile. They've been developing for their handheld, and they've been developing for consoles simultaneously, and they still do it, dropping games consistently, like nonstop, selling the most too, with lesser specs. They're beating you on handicap settings that you want to talk about, like hardware. And then this other little stupid post on it, Sony saying, oh, they need more powerful hardware on a big screen TV to be taken more serious as competition. But it's more ego projection. Like, because everybody knows that power trip stuff was already tore down a long time ago and it doesn't work. If that was the case, then the most powerful console would be in first place. You know what I mean? It's like, that's not the way the gaming industry works. Everybody knows this. So this is the first part I want to cover. There's another part we're going to be covering, but we're going to finish this part right here because there's other subjects for him to talk about too. This gets pretty interesting.
True though, it's actually
Yeah, when
This is a
you
fact.
live in Japan, it's very hard to see, where's the Xbox. Even though the PC gaming is becoming a bit more popular in Japan, but
Well, like I said, they'll just migrate into a hybrid PC aspect over time. I mean, we still got one more try, I believe, with the consoles. And then after that, you know what I mean? It's just like whatever. But Microsoft has a lot of money, so the mistakes they made, people were been supposed to be out the gaming industry, but they can still be around. So that's why it's like, yeah, they could do that. It's okay. You know what I mean? It's not going to hurt anyone to see another Xbox. I'm not against it. I don't care. You know what I mean? Why would that be bad? You know what I mean? Yeah, give it another try. Even if they did another one after that, I always like consoles being around in general, and I celebrate any console coming out. That's just me being a gamer, though.
it's all about Nintendo versus Sony. So the people, PlayStation people working in Japan see Nintendo clearly as competition, but outside Japan, PlayStation people clearly see Xbox as a primary.
Yeah, that's Western media, but like in reality, you still lost. You know what I mean? Even if the media is not like that, because it's still a market, and there has to be a winner, and there has to be somebody that got first place and sold the most. So it's like, yeah, we're just speaking stats here, even from like personal feelings aside. No, you don't, nothing biased in that. Just neutrally look at the stats. You know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, like you watch a sports game, look at the stats. You outperformed everybody. Yeah, I mean, it's not an argument. It's just like, yeah, I accept it as a man. I'm not going to sit here and try to dance around it and say stupid shit like sales don't matter.
For the first couple generations of PlayStation, Nintendo was still iterating on graphics from like the Nintendo 64 to the GameCube. Mm-hmm. And then they kind of broke off with the...
Okay, these are other subjects. But yeah, let me know what y'all think about this. This is interesting what he spilled at the beginning of the video about how the industry works, how he's restricted. Like I said, I like Shuhei, he's awesome. But when it comes to Sony and Nintendo, it's the same thing when they made up these fake 5 million sales for PlayStation 2 sales out of nowhere in Europe. Jim Ryan did that as he left. Because PS2, they were passed up already by the Switch in the United States of America and in Japan and every other region besides Europe. How is it when Jim Ryan leaves out, he reportedly has some bundled 5 million sales? No, it's all bullshit. As a matter of fact, Nintendo Switch 2 realistically is passing up the DS this year and the PlayStation. Because they said they want to ship 4 million, so that means 156 million. So the PlayStation 2 sales are getting passed up this year. Well, they're already passed up in every region besides Europe. And the DS getting passed up, and it's going to be the number one most sold console of all time. We know Sony made up the sales. You see what I mean? So it's like when it comes to that subject, I don't take them serious because they always find an excuse so they can't face reality, and they just want to just look at them beating Xbox because that's what it seems like subconsciously. We all see it, right? And everybody knows it. Let me know what y'all think. Like, comment, subscribe. Pony, sit down. Later, y'all.